We released the SMUGS with Goral, like, I think a couple years ago. The whole concept was sneakers made using good shit. Essentially making a sneaker up to boot standard and quality, while still clearly being a sneaker and wearing like a sneaker, but having all the durability and values of a boot. And some of those values are paring down all the over redundant things like an unnecessary lining, while beefing up some of the other components like a veg tan insole and the one stitch that Goral does that nobody else does. And that SMUGS platform just happened to be the perfect platform to build a barefoot sneaker on. And so me and Goral have been going back and forth, messing with designs, patterns, lines, different lasts, different shapes, to finally get to the point where I think we have made the highest quality barefoot sneaker you can get on the market. So we're gonna cut these things in half, run through all of our tests, so I can show you why I think we built the highest quality barefoot sneaker anywhere in the world. And just like all the rest of our videos that we make big claims like this, like the highest quality barefoot sneaker on the market, prove me wrong if you disagree. Who does it better? How do they do it better? Like, what did we get wrong and how we can make it better? Because I'm pretty confident that these are the highest quality barefoot sneakers money can buy. A lot of people have no idea that Anvil started as a leather goods company and especially a camera gear company, because in 2018, we launched our very first, well, a second Kickstarter, raised $500,000 for a camera harness. COVID hit immediately after, and so we started cutting boots and shoes in half from a professional leather worker's perspective. And then that whole thing happened, you know, now we're nearly at 1 million subscribers. But I finally got around to designing all the rest of the camera gear that I've been wanting to release for like the last 5 years, starting with the little slim wrist strap, cinches down, hand sewn. It's our belt thickness leather, so it's super sturdy. Our slim neck strap, same kind of concept. Really simple attachments, solid brass, hand sewn details, a little neck piece there. The lasso, you see all these little individual pieces and how they flow and move around. Our Lone Bandit that you probably heard me talking about plenty, that holds one camera at about as comfortably as humanly possible because it distributes your weight over a larger surface area. And then the Big Daddy, the full Bandit harness. This carries 2 to 3 cameras, because you can get a third camera attachment with the Pro package, and everything is designed by me and handmade right here in the shop. So if you need to get some Christmas gifts, some birthday gifts, if you need to upgrade your camera gear, or if you got an old camera just sitting around, you need a good excuse to pull it out, get yourself a little strap, check them out below, and thanks for supporting our handmade leather goods that makes this whole channel possible. So what are these sneakers? Well, the brand is Anvil x Goral. The style is the Barefoot SMUGS. They weigh a surprisingly light 1 pound. And obviously the high tops are a little bit heavier with more leather and all. The prices are $298 for the low tops and $360 for the high tops. And they're all made in England in the Goral factory. And the way that we position these products are exactly that. We're just trying to make the absolute highest quality barefoot sneaker money could buy. And if you do want to pair these, check them out via links in my description. Super limited quantities, just like all the collaborations. If you're watching this and they're sold out, be sure you get on that limited edition email list for this collaboration, because we'll probably do another drop. And that all starts with the leather, because that's a big part of the whole SMUGS platform, was trying to make a sneaker out of boot thickness leather. And this leather is that same leather. It's a Horween Chrome XL. It comes in at 2 to 2.2 millimeters thick. So right in that boot thickness, that's usually from 2 to 3 millimeters. Sneakers, you usually see 1 to 1.5 millimeters. And so that's why with the SMUGS, we didn't even want to line it. And you almost don't want to line it because this leather's so thick, you'd end up with a really thick slab of leather. So for a barefoot sneaker, it works perfectly. And it's one of my favorite leathers. Chrome XL is so nice because it's self-conditioning. It has a lot of this really nice pull-up. You can see right here as you bend it, it lightens up, so it gets a lot of character. You can see in my worn pair, that character really shows as you start wearing it with the highlights and the lowlights. And Chrome XL is a really interesting leather because it's almost self-healing in a way for everything except for like really heavy duty work. Because if you do a little scratch here, or if you like braid it up, or it gets scrubbed against the ground, this leather has so much oil and wax worked into it that all you have to do is heat up that leather with a little bit of friction. All those oils and waxes reheat up and lay all those fibers flat again and completely get rid of that scratch. Mostly anyway. And so it's a really cool patina leather that ages really beautifully. It lasts a really long time. It almost takes no care because of all the conditioning in it. But more importantly, it's just a beautiful leather. I love this leather, and it smells really good too, even after you've worn them a bunch. The white pair is a little bit different with a lot of the features because we were trying to make it more of a traditional white sneaker, but this is a 1.5 millimeter full grain calfskin. So we'll mostly ignore that, but for the most part, we're gonna focus on the Chrome XL leathers because it's tanned by one of the top tanneries in the world, Horween, based out of Chicago. They make some of the most popular leather. They are the name in shell cordovan. They're the ones that have been doing it for over 100 years. This Chrome XL formula is like 90 years old in and of itself. and there's like a bunch of different processes. There's a reason why people love Chrome Excel. We ran the burn test on it, and you can see how much oil and conditioner is in there, because it takes a long time to actually burn, because you have to almost boil off all that oil and all that wax. You look at the cross section with the macro lens, plenty of grain left in there. Chrome Excel technically is a buff finish. And so this top smooth layer is after they wax it and lay it back down flat. And so that's why when you scratch it, it scratches pretty easily, because it's just those little microfibers that are laid flat with wax that you're lifting back up again. So all you do with friction is it lays them back flat and smooths it over. And so that's why this leather is almost self-healing in a way, because it's technically a corrected grain. We did the puncture test on it, took 178 pounds, which is the 5th overall. And it's not the most scientific test, but it gives you some ballpark information. And that's why I thought the SMUGS is the perfect platform for a barefoot sneaker, because you don't have to have all that redundancy, but you still get the durability and thickness of a high quality leather while all being wrapped in a barefoot platform. Some people might want a thinner leather for more flexibility, but for me, over time, it really softens up, and I want that little bit of extra thickness, especially if I'm paying this much money for a boot. I want to have a leather that I know is going to last a long time. But that is one point that some of the barefoot people are not going to be hyped about. It is a little bit thicker and it's a little bit stiffer of a leather. But like I said, it's completely unlined. That's why the SMUGS concept is perfect for a barefoot sneaker, because like I said, you don't have to line it. And even if you did line a barefoot sneaker, it'd end up being as thick, if not thicker, than just a single piece of this thick Chrome Excel. And because it doesn't have a lining, it's gonna be more breathable, it's gonna bend and articulate more naturally. It's just gonna take longer to break in. And it's not that this doesn't have a lining, because you can see deep in the heel, there is a dedicated internal counter cover, which is different from the original SMUGS. And it also has just a little bit of a lining in the toe, just to smooth out some of these stitch points and give you a little bit of comfort in the toe and structure in the toe, so it doesn't completely collapse the first time you wear it. But at the same time, it's not so structured that it's not gonna bulge out and shape to the shape of your foot. But the most interesting thing about this, and the thing that I think really separates this from any of the other barefoot sneakers, and even some of the other ones that we did leading up to this, the prototypes, because it's just so hard to make a barefoot sneaker not look absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of the brands that are in the barefoot world do a really good job of using visual, almost like optical illusions to trick your brain into thinking they're not as wide as they are. You know, there's some brands like, maybe my favorite example is Limbs uses a little mock toe stitch on their boulder boot that really hides the width. Keen does a good job of doing little toe bumpers. So we wanted to apply that same concept to this pattern and say, okay, this on a barefoot last looks ridiculously wide. So we contacted one of the top designers in the barefoot space that's worked with a lot of brands and designed some really interesting optical illusions essentially for barefoot shoes. And we're like, all right, let's just go to the pros. And so we told them our concept. We want to bring the waist in. We want to have that optical illusion effect. We wanted to integrate some of the features that are missing from SMUGS into the barefoot SMUGS to add a little bit of comfort and kind of round that off for a barefoot sneaker. And what we ended up with is this. And I think it works so well, because you can see it's very reminiscent of the other pattern, because it still has those stitch lines and they kind of sweep in. But you can see, because we rolled that edge and gave it a lot more of a visual line down the front of the toe box, it almost creates a natural waist for your eye. And it makes it look a lot more slim than it actually is, because it's bringing your eye in and your eye follows these lines down to the toe. Obviously, it's still ridiculously wide. Like it still looks like a barefoot shoe. But you compare this to some of the other patterns that we've done in any other barefoot shoe, and it does hide it pretty well. There's no mistaking that it's a barefoot shoe for sure, but this pattern looks cool. And more than just looking cool, is it's actually functional, because this creates almost like a soft collar where the SMUGS don't have a soft collar. And SMUGS is a high top pattern. And the problem with SMUGS is there's no padded collars, there's no lining. So for a low top, it can be really, really hard around your ankle. And so for the barefoot SMUGS, we wanted to do the low top. And by rolling this and softening this up just a little bit, it still is completely unlined. It still maintains that unlined feel and feature of it, but giving just a little bit of flexibility and softness there in the collar, so that these low tops are actually wearable. And same thing with the high tops. You know, with the high tops, same concept, a little bit more padded collar. This waist kind of brings the whole shoe in. There's no mistaking it's super wide, but it does help. And honestly, if I'm being straight up with you, I thought for sure I'd like the high tops more. I think I like the low tops more. I think this pattern works better on a low top. I think it just looks better, it feels better. Not to say that the high tops don't work, but I was shocked at how much I like these low tops. Another thing we had to change was change outsoles, because not only is it the wrong shape for a barefoot shoe, but it also has that structure in the heel, giving it just a little bit of a heel, which is not barefoot. So we went with this outsole, which is a little thinner, a little bit shorter on the sidewall, more flexible, and truly barefoot, and it just fits the pattern. It's a barefoot outsole made for a barefoot last. And when we get it cut in half, I'll show you the thickness difference between the two. It's around the same hardness, it's around the same responsiveness, and it feels very similar to the regular SMUGS. And if we pull out the insole, you know, it's different from the regular Goral insole because we have to custom cut these and make them in-house to actually give you an insole for a barefoot shoe. It looks like a more recycled foam topped with their regular lining leather, but the nice thing is it's removable. You can throw whatever insoles you want in there because the foundation of this shoe is underneath the insole. And this stitch is why I want to do this with Goral and why I think they're capable of making the highest quality barefoot sneaker, because that's a Blake stitch. Blake stitches, you almost exclusively see them in like dress shoes, higher end boots, high-end dress boots. But Goral is the very first brand that introduced a Blake stitch inside of a sneaker. And what that does for a barefoot sneaker is it makes it a lot more durable. So when you're really beating these up, when you go to replace the outsole, the whole shoe is gonna stay intact, so it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to resole. It's going to give you a lot firmer foundation. It's going to give you a lot more natural feel because instead of standing on synthetics, you're standing on leather. So it's going to absorb your sweat. It's going to compress the shape of your foot. It's not going to smell nearly as bad because a lot of the barefoot guys love wearing these without socks. And when you're standing barefoot in a barefoot shoe without socks on and you're standing on synthetics, it smells within like 3 days. And on top of that, it's arguably the most durable material you can stand on inside of a shoe. And you pair that with the Blake stitch, that's why we chose Goral as the most durable sneakers for that white sneaker series. I've yet to see anybody make a more durable high-end sneaker than Goral. So for a barefoot sneaker, works perfectly. It's the perfect way to do it. But the way that it is built is gonna add some extra rigidity because to get that Blake stitch to work, you have to wrap the upper underneath the insole, and then that Blake stitch sews the insole down to the upper, creating almost a sock that the outsole is then attached to. So when it comes to flexibility, you have a lot of material underneath your foot that you wouldn't from a regular Strobel stitch. So that is one downside that the barefoot people might have with this, is it's not gonna be quite as flexible as some of the other shoes because of the more thick upper, because of the veg tan insole, and especially because of that Blake stitch. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let's cut these in half and I'll show you exactly what I mean. That was a good one. That's a 10, easy. All right, we got it cut in half, and if you're not subscribed, consider pushing the subscribe button, and thank you guys for supporting these collaborations, because this is a huge part of how we're gonna be able to do all the big stuff that we have planned this year. And all these collaborations we're doing, all the support from you guys and the brands that work with us is how we're going to be able to hit that goal of being the #1 resource in the entire world for all footwear education. So thank you guys. So now, let's see what's inside. So almost exactly the same as your regular pair of SMUGS. You know, you can see now what I meant by that upper being tucked underneath and then Blake stitch sewn down there. So that just adds a little bit of extra bulk all the way around the perimeter of the boot or the shoe. It gives it a little bit of extra rigidity. It's not a crazy amount. It's not like it's a Pacific Northwest boot or anything, but it does add some rigidity. You can see now what I was talking about with that dedicated internal counter cover. You can see how unlined it is and how that little bit of a collar and that padding in the collars really helps this be a little bit more comfortable for the barefoot world, especially in these low tops. And the other components we didn't identify from the outside is this yellow layer is a felted wool that gives you just a little bit of insulation from the ground, helps fill that void caused by the upper being tucked underneath, helps prevent it from squeaking. And then right above that, you've got the fiberboard that Goral attaches to that veg tan, so it adheres better. It makes it a little bit easier for them to manufacture. And you also have that leatherboard heel counter. We've gone back and forth about maybe doing that in veg tan, but a lot of people really like the middle ground that leatherboard is in between hard veg tan and a really soft synthetic counter. It kind of bridges the gap. It's not quite as hard to break in, but it's more durable than synthetic, not quite as durable as veg tan. It molds the shape of your foot like veg tan, but doesn't break down like a synthetic. And so for a barefoot sneaker, I still like that leatherboard counter, even though people sometimes have issue with it because I talk mad shit about Alden using it. Those are also $600 and it was used in a completely different way, so relax. And on that point, like no matter what we do, we try to push the limit with all these things. And I love making claims like, I think this is the highest quality barefoot sneaker in the world. And people always have issues with anybody claiming that they've done the best. But I think this is pretty undeniable. I think if you look at the inside of this, I think people are gonna be pretty hard pressed to find any barefoot sneaker that even gets close to the quality of this. There's probably some more comfortable sneakers out there that have a lot more foam, like limbs are really, I'm actually wearing a pair. Like these limbs are ridiculously comfortable, but they're not gonna be as durable. They're not as high end. They're not made out of the same materials. It's a completely different concept. But in terms of quality, if you think there's one out there that's better than this, prove me wrong. Tell me exactly what brand does it better, how they do it better, why they do it better. Just because I think it is already the highest quality sneaker doesn't mean there's room for improvement. And that's half the fun with these. I love pushing the boundaries. I like trying to do things that nobody else has done before, doing the absolute best of anything we can do. That's what's fun about these. That's why I like doing these collaborations, because it's not fun to just do a very mid-style product or recreate what someone's already done. So thank you guys for supporting this. These collaborations this year is a huge part of how we're going to become the #1 educational platform in the entire world for footwear. And it's all thanks to your guys' support of these collaborations, the brands being willing to try this absolutely ridiculous stuff that is so far off the deep end for Goral that it's like, you know, because Goral's known for making these like nice, slim silhouette English sneakers. And I'm like, let's make them this, you know? And they're willing to do it because you guys are willing to watch these videos and support them and take a gamble on some of these projects and really working with us on trying to make some of the best products in the world. So thank you guys. And if you do want a pair of these, check them out via links in my description. We'll also put links to the regular SMUGs, the mugs, the slugs, all the other Goral collaborations we've done, because they're all ridiculous and over the top. So thank you guys. See ya. And I think it's freaking sick, dude.